In the previous video, which is part 1 of this video, we exposed the first 2 silent mistakes that slowly destroy a man's reputation: over-explaining yourself and tolerating repeated disrespect. But the next mistake is even more dangerous, because the moment people notice it, they immediately realize they have psychological leverage over you. And once that happens, your reputation begins collapsing faster than you think. The third silent mistake that destroys a man's reputation is one of the fastest ways to lose psychological power. And the dangerous part is that most men commit it without realizing what signal they are sending. The mistake is chasing attention. Attention from friends, attention from colleagues, attention from social groups, and most commonly, attention from women. At first glance, this behavior seems harmless. After all, humans are social creatures. Wanting interaction is normal. But reputation is not built on what is normal. It is built on what signals control. And chasing attention sends the opposite signal. It tells people that their presence has emotional value over you. The moment someone senses that your mood depends on their response, something shifts in their mind. They realize they now have leverage, not necessarily because they want to manipulate you, but because the power dynamic becomes obvious. You are seeking something from them. And in human psychology, the person seeking validation almost always appears weaker than the person granting it. Think about how attention works in everyday interactions. A man sends a message. Then he checks his phone every few minutes. No response. He sends another message. Still nothing. And now he begins explaining why he sent the first message. Then he apologizes for sending too many messages. What just happened in that short sequence? A psychological position was revealed. The other person now knows something very important. Your attention is invested. Your emotional state is engaged. Your patience is shrinking. And once someone sees this pattern, your reputation shifts. You are no longer perceived as a man who controls his environment. You are perceived as a man reacting to it. And reacting men are predictable. Predictable men are controllable. This is why powerful reputations are built around scarcity of attention. Not arrogance, not coldness, but control. Controlled men do not flood people with messages. They do not demand immediate responses. They do not chase acknowledgement. And they understand that attention works like currency. The more desperately you spend it, the less valuable it becomes. But the more selectively you give it, the more weight it carries. Imagine 2 different men in the same situation. Both send a message. One man sends 5 follow-up messages when there is no reply. The other man sends 1 message and continues with his life. Who appears more stable? Who appears more occupied? Who appears more valuable? The second man. Not because he is pretending, but because his behavior communicates something powerful. His life does not pause for validation. And reputation is heavily influenced by what your life appears to revolve around. If people believe your emotional stability depends on their attention, your reputation weakens. But if people believe your attention is limited and deliberate, or your reputation strengthens, this is why mysterious individuals often appear powerful. Their attention is not easily obtained, and scarcity naturally increases perceived value. Even centuries ago, strategists understood the importance of controlling attention. Figures like Niccolò Machiavelli observed that rulers who appeared too eager to please their allies often lost influence quickly, because eagerness revealed dependency, and dependency is the enemy of authority. The same principle exists in modern life. If you appear too eager for inclusion in a group, people sense it. If you appear too eager for someone's approval, they sense it. If you appear too eager for someone's attention, they sense it. And once they sense it, your reputation adjusts accordingly. You are no longer perceived as a man whose presence carries weight. You become a man seeking acceptance, and acceptance seekers are rarely respected long-term. This does not mean you should become distant or antisocial. It simply means your attention must be intentional, not reactive. Because reactive attention is emotional. Intentional attention is strategic. Here is where many men damage their reputation without noticing. They allow boredom to guide their behavior. They scroll through their contacts. They message people randomly. They start conversations simply to avoid silence. But silence is not the enemy. Uncontrolled behavior is. Disciplined men are comfortable with quiet periods. They do not chase interaction simply to fill time. Their lives contain enough direction that attention naturally flows outward, not desperately inward. And when people sense that about you, something interesting happens. They begin valuing your presence differently, because you are not seeking theirs. You are choosing it. Choice creates respect. Desperation destroys it. This is why men who constantly seek validation through messages, social media, or approval often struggle with reputation. Their behavior communicates emotional hunger, and emotional hunger is easily detected. But men who control their attention create a different psychological effect. People become curious. They begin wondering what occupies your time. They begin noticing when you appear. They begin respecting the space you create. And that space protects your reputation. Because mystery prevents easy classification. Once people believe they fully understand your emotional patterns, they begin predicting your behavior. Prediction leads to testing. Testing leads to manipulation. But controlled attention disrupts that entire cycle. It keeps people uncertain, and uncertainty encourages respect. But there is one final mistake that destroys reputations even faster than chasing attention. A mistake that exposes insecurity so clearly that people begin doubting your authority immediately. It happens during arguments, during disagreements, during moments when emotions begin rising. And the way a man behaves in those moments often defines how people remember him long after the conversation ends. Because reputation is not built during calm situations. It is built during pressure. The fourth silent mistake that destroys a man's reputation is one that reveals weakness faster than almost anything else. And it usually happens in moments of pressure. Moments when emotions rise. Moments when someone challenges you, disagrees with you, or tries to provoke you. The mistake is losing emotional control publicly. Nothing reshapes how people see you faster than watching you lose control. Not because emotions are unnatural, but because reputation is built on the perception of stability. The moment people see that your emotions can be easily triggered, they learn something important about you. They learn where the buttons are. And once people know where your buttons are, your behavior becomes predictable. Predictable men are easy to manage. Predictable men are easy to manipulate. Predictable men are easy to disrespect. But controlled men create uncertainty, and uncertainty forces people to behave carefully. Think about the last time you saw someone completely lose their temper during an argument. Maybe they started shouting. Maybe they began insulting people. Maybe they started talking faster and louder, trying to dominate the room emotionally. In that moment, something interesting happened. Even if their point was correct, people stopped focusing on the argument. They started focusing on the loss of control. And the memory that remains is not the logic they presented. The memory that remains is the emotional outburst. This is how reputations collapse. Not through logic, through visible emotional instability. Men who guard their reputation understand something that most people learn too late. Arguments are rarely about truth. They are about perception. The person who appears calmer almost always appears stronger, even when they say fewer words, even when the other person speaks louder. Because calm behavior communicates something powerful: control. And control creates psychological authority. This is why disciplined men do not rush into emotional confrontations. They slow the situation down. They lower their voice instead of raising it. They respond briefly instead of emotionally. Sometimes they say nothing at all, because silence under pressure sends a message that words cannot. It communicates that your emotional state is not easily hijacked. And when people realize they cannot provoke you easily, something fascinating happens. They stop trying, because provocation only works when it produces a reaction. Without the reaction, the tactic becomes useless. This principle has existed in strategic thinking for centuries. Even observers of power like Niccolò Machiavelli recognized that rulers who reacted emotionally to criticism often appeared weak, while rulers who remained composed appeared untouchable. The same rule applies to everyday life. Your reputation is heavily influenced by how you behave under pressure. Anyone can appear calm when life is smooth. Anyone can appear disciplined when nothing challenges them. But the moment someone disrespects you, the moment someone questions you, the moment someone tries to embarrass you, that is when people truly observe who you are. And those observations travel far. People talk. Stories spread. And reputations are built through stories. Not the stories you tell about yourself, but the stories people tell about witnessing you. Remember when he lost control? Remember how calm he stayed? Remember how he handled that situation? These stories form the invisible structure around your name. Your name becomes associated with something: stability, or instability, strength, or emotional volatility, authority, or insecurity. And once that association becomes common knowledge, it shapes every future interaction. This is why disciplined men do something different when tension rises. They slow down, they breathe, they observe, they choose their words carefully, because they understand that the room is watching. Even if the room is small, even if it is only a few people, every moment of pressure becomes part of your reputation. Now here is the final truth most men never realize about reputation. It is not built through one big action. It is built through thousands of small signals. Signals that tell people how to classify you. And once people classify you, they rarely change that classification easily. Which is why protecting your reputation requires daily discipline. Control your reactions. Control your attention. Control what you tolerate. Control how much you explain yourself. Control what emotions people are allowed to see. Because every one of those behaviors becomes data. Data people use to decide how they treat you. And once that data paints a clear picture, your reputation begins working either for you or against you. When it works for you, something powerful happens. People behave carefully around you. They think before crossing certain lines. They choose their words more deliberately. They respect your time. They respect your boundaries. Not because you demanded it, but because your reputation quietly enforces it. That is real power. Power that does not require shouting. Power that does not require constant defense. A power that exists simply because people know what happens when your standards are crossed. But when reputation works against you, the opposite happens. People test you. They interrupt you. They challenge you more easily. They take your time less seriously. They push boundaries just to see how far they can go. And reversing that situation becomes extremely difficult. Because reputation, once damaged, spreads faster than correction. This is why disciplined men protect their name long before problems appear. They understand that reputation is a shield that either protects your authority or exposes your weaknesses. So ask yourself one honest question. What does your current reputation communicate about you? When people hear your name in a room you are not in, what kind of story do they associate with it? Control or reaction on discipline or emotional instability, boundaries or tolerance for disrespect? Because whatever story people associate with your name today will shape how they treat you tomorrow. And if you truly understand this principle, you will begin guarding your reputation with the seriousness it deserves, not through fear, but through discipline, through consistent behavior, through controlled reactions, through standards that never quietly collapse. Because a man who protects his name protects his power. And once that power is established, something remarkable happens. You no longer need to demand respect. Your reputation quietly collects it for you. Now, if this video made you see reputation differently, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. Because on this channel, we break down the psychology of power, discipline, and strategy that most men only understand after costly mistakes. And if you want to go deeper, watch the next video. It explains how powerful men use silence as a weapon, a strategy that protects your reputation while making people respect your presence even more. Because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one who speaks the least.